This episode is dedicated to U.S. Marine Corps Force Recon Chief Warrant Officer Solomon Godwin. Operation Pathfinders episode number 3, Diagnosing PTSD. In this intel report, I will be discussing with you the criterions of PTSD and what you need to do right now to get squared away. Hello everyone, I'm your host, Ben Williams, veteran and advocate. PTSD is the toughest enemy you'll ever face. This relentless adversary will destroy you from the inside out until it has taken you early in life. He is determined and relentless, but Operation Pathfinder's mission is to be a part of the solution when it comes to helping you with PTSD. You will also hear from fellow veterans, survivors, professionals who have been there and understand. And each episode will provide you with intel of purpose and of hope to keep you on the move. Warriors understanding the various weapons and tactics used by PTSD is essential in developing a plan to push forward and winning these individual battles within. He does not utilize just one weapon. He utilizes an arsenal of weapons and tactics to defeat you and to beat you down every single day. And knowing these tactics and weapons will provide you a better blueprint for a counterattack. It is essential to coordinate with your physicians to determine the solution and the situation. Many of the physical symptoms are often confused with PTSD's tactics. So determining the enemy you are dealing with is the fundamental key to success. Rushing into any fight without knowing your opponent is step 1 to failure. Your doctor will perform an evaluation. By obtaining the necessary intel of your current situation is the key component for success. Most likely, your doctor will conduct a physical to determine if there could be other ailments attacking you other than PTSD. Once the physical ailments have been evaluated and warrants no further research, doing a psychological evaluation would be the necessary next step. This process involves a discussion revolving around your signs and symptoms. The enemy is very clear when formulating a strategy. It is important to know what exposures you've endured. Direct experience with traumatic events, personally witnessing a traumatic event, or contact exposure of a traumatic event, those are the key indicators that you may be dealing with PTSD. Your physician will use the criteria in the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, otherwise known as the DSM-5, published by the American Psychiatric Association. All of the conditions included in this classification require exposure to a traumatic event or a stressful event as a diagnostic criterion. These criterions must be met for a PTSD diagnosis. Criterion A is a stressor, and one of these are required. Quote, the person who was exposed to death, threatened death, actual or threatened serious injury, or actual or threatened sexual violence in the following ways, either by direct exposure, witnessing the trauma, learning that a relative or close friend was exposed to trauma, and indirect exposure to adverse details of the trauma, usually in the course of professional duties, such as a first responder or medics. The next criterion B, is intrusive symptoms, and one of these is also required. The traumatic event is persistently re-experienced in the following ways: unwanted, upsetting memories, nightmares, flashbacks, emotional distress after exposure to traumatic reminders, and physical reactivity after exposure to the traumatic reminders. Criterion C is avoidance, and also one of these is required. Avoidance of a trauma-related stimuli after the trauma in the following ways: trauma-related thoughts or feelings, or trauma-related external reminders. Criterion D, negative alteration in cognition and mood. 2 of these are required. Negative thoughts or feelings that began or worsened after the trauma in the following ways: inability to recall key features of the trauma, overly negative thoughts or assumptions about oneself or the world, exaggerated blame of self and others for causing the trauma, negative affect, decreased interest in activities, feeling isolated, and difficulty experiencing positive affect. Criterion E is alteration in arousal and reactivity. Trauma-related arousal and reactivity that began or worsened after the trauma in the following ways: irritability or aggression, risky or destructive behavior, hypervigilance, heightened startled reaction, and difficulty concentrating, difficulty sleeping. Criterion F is duration, and again, this is required. Symptoms that last more than a month. Criterion G is functional significance, and this is also required. Symptoms create distress or functional impairment, such as social interaction or occupational. Criterion H is exclusion, and this is also required. Symptoms are not due to medication, substance use, or other illnesses. 2 specifications. Dissociative specification. In addition to meeting criteria for diagnosis, an individual experiences high level of either the following in reaction to a trauma-related stimuli. That is, depersonalization, experience of being an outside observer of or detached from oneself, such as feelings of as if this is not happening to me or maybe a dream. Derealization, the experience of unreality, distance, or distortion. An example would be things are not real. Delayed specification, full diagnostic criteria are not met until at least 6 months after the trauma or traumas, although onset of symptoms may occur immediately. Now, this is an intel report to let you know what the diagnosis requirements are for PTSD. As I stated before, folks, the first step is to contact your family physician or doctor, whoever it is that you go see on a regular basis for your physicals and flus and coughs and everything else. Make an appointment, see them first. Explain your concerns, understand that they need to do these physicals first. This is a requirement, a prerequisite, that they do this first. Then, if they ruled out that there's something else that could be the cause, they will start with the psychological evaluations in the DSM-5. Trust your doctor. If you're not happy, get a second and third, fourth opinion, whatever. But start by getting in and seeing a doctor. That is the fundamental first step, folks. Go see a doctor, please. My main purpose of this intel report is to get you to know the groundwork and what your next step should be in identifying as well as understanding what you may be up against. I cannot emphasize this enough, folks. You need to start building a team around you and develop a lasting trust. That is the ultimate key to a successful battle. Stay determined. Do not let anyone or anything try to bring you down. This is a fight for your life. And I promise you, your feelings of hopelessness, fear, and numbness, that is the enemy talking to you. That is PTSD, and he has no qualms beating you down. This is the fog of war. You need to get pissed off because every day he disrespects you. He brings you down. He spits on you. Who the hell does he think he is? Fight for your life. Fight for your family. Fight for your friends. You need to have no regrets and get results to get after it. Before I wrap up this episode, I want to honor a veteran who wrote a blank check in defense of our great nation and paid the ultimate sacrifice. He was a U.S. Marine with Force Recon, and he served during the Vietnam War. And during the Tet Offensive, he was taken prisoner and lost his life due to ailments that he received while being held captive as prisoner of war. And after a long prison stint, during a prison transfer, he succumbed to those illnesses and died. His body is buried somewhere in Vietnam, but his memory and spirit will live forever on the Vietnam War Memorial. He is family, and he is Chief Warrant Officer Solomon Godwin of Hot Springs, Arkansas. Please take a moment to subscribe to this free podcast, no strings attached, to help build our army of warriors and take back our lives from this deadly enemy known as PTSD. The more subscribers, downloads, reviews help fuel our machine and be a beacon of hope for other warriors that are struggling in silence and is desperately seeking help or needing help. In the next episode, your intel report briefing will discuss the structure of PTSD's army and their fighting styles. But until next time, keep on the move. Operation Pathfinders podcast is based on my views and experience with PTSD, but will be evidence-based as possible. I welcome any comments, suggestions, or corrections of errors. I take no money from drug devices or medical companies. Always consult your own physician or therapist for any medical or mental health issues that you may be having. This entire disclaimer also applies to any guest or contributors to the podcast, and under no circumstances shall Operation Pathfinder guests or contributors to the podcast or any employees, associates, or affiliates of Operation Pathfinder be responsible for any damages arising from the use of this podcast. Thank you.